Smartphone sensors have gotten huge in the last year. The Galaxy S20 Ultra has a 1 over 1.3 inch main camera and a half-inch telephoto sensor, and the Huawei P40 Pro Plus's main sensor is even larger at 1 over 1.28 inches. That's a lot of numbers to keep track of, so here's the gist. It helps with low light performance, you get better depth of field, but it also creates some new problems that maybe could have been avoided with Samsung's dual aperture feature from the S9. So let's talk about optics. Smartphones have some of the most incredible camera tech out there, backed by AI features like semantic segmentation and various night modes, but their biggest physical limitation is the tiny sensors they have to work with. Even the P40 Pro Plus's sensor is minuscule compared to the full-frame sensor on a dedicated camera like my Sony a7 III, and that means that the phone has to work a lot harder to get something that's anywhere close to the same image quality. That size definitely helps though. Just like with dedicated cameras, having a larger sensor in your phone allows for far better depth of field without having to fake it with a software-based portrait mode effect. Just look at some of these shots we captured on the S20 Ultra, for example. You could almost mistake these photos for having been taken on a dedicated camera like the RX100, thanks in large part to the crisp bokeh that portrait mode typically tries to replicate. The photos look great, but with a wide f1.8 aperture, this natural bokeh can actually work against you in some scenarios. Take this shot of a coffee cup, for example. The text actually starts to go out of focus as it wraps around the cup, and that's without portrait mode or any kind of in-camera effects enabled. That's because the focal plane is so narrow at f1.8 that you can't capture everything in one shot. I struggle with this all the time when I'm shooting tight shots on my a7 III, but the difference there is that I can stop my aperture down until everything is in focus, albeit with the trade-off of losing some light and depth. Samsung actually used to offer this kind of feature with the S9, letting you dynamically switch between f1.5 and f2.4, but back then the 1 over 2.5 inch sensor was just too small for this dual aperture system to really make a noticeable difference, and by the time the S20 was announced, it had already been phased out for better or worse. Beyond depth, physically larger sensors are also able to take in more light, which means you can generally expect better low-light performance from phones like the S20 Ultra, LG V60, and P40 Pro Plus. But you'll also need to take into account that these higher resolutions, particularly with the S20 Ultra's 108 megapixel main sensor, means smaller individual pixels. With that comes less precise color information, among other trade-offs, and it's the main reason so many companies use pixel binning with their ultra high-res sensors to combine information from neighboring pixels and produce a cleaner, more dynamic shot at a lower resolution. On the S20 Ultra, I pretty much always preferred shooting at the reduced 12 megapixels with 9:1 binning enabled, but you do get some advantages when shooting at the full 108 megapixels, namely the ability to crop in without losing detail. Overall, I do prefer the option of having a larger sensor in phones, but it isn't without its disadvantages. I wish Samsung wouldn't have ditched its dual aperture feature right in tandem with the release of a phone that could actually benefit from it, and I'm hoping it isn't too long before another manufacturer gives it a go. Let me know your thoughts on large phone sensors in the comments down below, and if you enjoyed this video, give it a like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks as always for watching, and until next time, stay safe.